Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode. And today, in this discussion, we'll talk about a very important aspects of OData development, and that is called expansion. So, if you're OData beginners and you have certain doubts that how this expansion works, or the different performance aspects that we need to keep in our mind while designing the OData service, then yes, you just reached the right video that will definitely clarify all your doubts. So if you're coming to my channel for the first time, then I must encourage you to check this playlist called OData Development on my little YouTube channel, where you can find a few more other videos. Not only that, I believe the different other playlists like Fury, CAPM, DTP, and different subject that possibly catch your interest, and you can start learning because all are free. Just it needs your appetite. In a real-time project, you'll often encounter a scenario where you need to extract all the sales orders and the respective item details, isn't it? For example, in this diagram, you can see that I have order header entity, which has order ID as the primary key. Apart from that, a few more other fields. At the same time, the related order item entity does have the order ID as the primary key. Also, it has line item or POSNER is an additional or second primary key. And that creates a connection between these two entities with order ID as the match. In this OData tutorial, we'll try to understand how expansion query parameter can be used to extract all the items for the respective order headers. So let's head over to the development. I am using SAP's free ABAP 1909 trial edition and doesn't have any functional module installed. So for the discussion, I could use EPM module, which is available, called Enterprise Procurement Model. But for the sake of discussion and to make this little simpler for you, I have created two simple tables called parent and child. And these two tables will be used my data source and will create the OData project with that. So let's see first these two tables, what it contains. So this is the parent table, which contains the order ID, sales log, and the customer, where order is the primary key. Similar way, I have created one more table called zchild, and it contains the same order ID and POSNER as an additional key fields or composite key fields. Other than that, we have material and plant, and I have already loaded the data so that I can test it once my service is created. So let's come to the transaction called SEGW, which is called the Gateway Service Builder, and click on the create button. Let's do ZOD expansion demo. I can put demo expansion. Let's save it in the local folder. I'm keeping all other attributes as default. Now you can see the data model is actually all empty. Okay, I will use these two tables to create my entities quite faster than manual creating all the properties. So click on the data model, right click on import, and click on detect structure. Let's put the entity name as order header. It's an entity type. The structure I'll be using called zparent. And I'll also create the default entity set at the same time. Click on next. Now I have the opportunity to select the fields that I'm interested. I'll be using that order ID, sales log, customer, everything. So click on next. And I have to select one of the properties as the key field. So definitely I'll be selecting order header as the key field. Click on finish. So that way my entity type order header is created. Similar way, let's create the item. So by now I have created the two entity types and the respective entity sets are already created. So next step would be creating the association or some sort of a linkage between these two. So click on association, right click, create. Association, let's say header to item. So the primary or principal entity type will be our order header. And cardinality is, let's say, to 0 to 1, because I may have order or may not have order, but at least one order I can expect. The dependent one should be the item. Again, cardinality, I can have a 0 item or multiple item. All right, now let's create the related navigation property also. So by default, it's proposing that order item set and order header. So give this property, navigation property, different name so that it is easy to remember something that it's a navigation property. So it is nav order item set. This is, so from order header, it will be using this nav order item set to reach the item detail, and from the item, if I want back to the parent, then I'll be using this navigation property. So let's go to the next one. Now we can put a referential constants, kind of a dependency, just like we do have in the table level as a foreign key. Similar way, this dependent property I can use now, and it is obviously the order ID of the parent or dependent property that I can link to with my principal entity. So click on next. And now kind of a default, like this is our association set name supposed to be created. And this is the two entity sets that we are using in this association. Click on finish. And that way this association is created, and also the association set is ready. Side by side, if I open the order header, we'll see this nav property is created. Similarly, from order item, we have another nav property created, which is linking to the parent. Now the next important step should be to generate this overall project. Click on this button and it will generate certain runtime objects. Currently, you can see this runtime artifacts folder is not expandable because nothing is there. So let's generate it. So I'm taking all the proposed class names as default and clicking on this tick button. We are selecting it as a local object for the time being. Yes, runtime object generated successfully. You can see now those artifacts got created. Let's quickly understand this runtime artifacts before we'll proceed next. So DPC is called the data provider class, and DPC extension is called the DPC provider class extension object. Similarly, this is the model provider class and model provider class object. This is the model and this is the service name. Now, very important thing that when we'll try to make any change in this service to write our data logic to fill the entities, to write our custom logic, we should only touch or only change this dpc underscore ext and mpc underscore ext. I have seen many developers in the beginners level, sometimes they change this dpc or mpc. Never do that. That because the moment I'll change this model, I add a new properties or new entities or any other navigation, whatever the properties I'll add it, eventually I have to regenerate this project. Then what will happen, this dpc and mpc will be also regenerated. And that's why, so if I write any custom logic over there or add any custom attributes in these two classes, these are all custom classes, so it is obviously you can change it. But the moment we change it, changes will be vanished or wipe out the moment they regenerate. So that's why I'm again telling, make sure that we don't touch dpc and mpc, but we'll always use the dpc ext and mpc ext. So these are kind of an inherited kind of an object. So SAP will actually use this mpc for declaring all sort of types and constants. So anything that we need to refer to our dpc ext for our data providing writing logic, we can refer them from mpc. All right, so we'll see how this works. So let's get in this class. You can double click on that and it will show this way. You can double click or you can right click here and go to above workbench and it will take you to this AC24 or rather AC80, I would say. Rather. As you can see, there are different methods available responsible for the create, delete, or maybe update. And for two entities, we have order header and order item. So respective methods we need to implement and we should write our custom logic over there. But before implement, let's register this service and see that what are the different methods that we need to implement, and that will come back to this screen, and we'll start our writing custom logic. Now to register this service, expand this service maintenance, double click on the available option that I have, where is a gateway hub. Now click on this register button. So this is more of our embedded hub system, because the service and the service registration both happening in the same system. So now select the package assignment as local, and I have kept everything as default. Click on this green tick. Now this service registration is done. So let's click on this SAP Gateway client. Yes, I want to open that client now. So this is the service that we have just now created. Congratulations. So let's test it. Click on this execute. Voila, it says everything at this status code as 200. Okay. So our service is up and running. Now click on this button called entity sets, and we'll see the available entities that we created, header set and item set. I can select one of the entity set, which is, let's say, order header. If I click on execute, obviously we don't have any custom logic created, so we are expecting certain errors, of course. So let's see what happens. And exactly, it's giving a 501 status code and giving a message called not implemented. But what not implemented? It says that orders header set get entity set, that particular method is not yet implemented. So next step would be implement this method and then come back to client and see, checking this test status, what happens. I'm back to dpcxt method once again. If I just scroll a little bit, then I'll find something called order header set, get entity set. So this is the method that eventually I'm getting a complaint. This is not implemented. So click on this change button, and then you will see this one is enabled. So first one is called the redefined method or re-implement, and this is actually undo the activities or definition. So obviously click on this re-implement this method. So we are now in this method. Let's comment this code. Commented code, I don't need it. So what exactly we need to write the logic here? You see there are a couple of importing parameters, and one of the parameters is called entity set, which is pointing to a model provider class and a table type called TT order header. So if I double click on that, yes, I want to save the changes. It will take me to the model provider class, and this is the order header. If I click on this button, this is the type of this order header, which means type of our parent table. So if I select the data from parent table and I can pass it on to this table type, then it should be able to display the order header details. Let's try that out. So let's activate. So now let's go to our gateway client, and I'll retest this URL. Hopefully it will not complain anymore, and yes, it is indeed, and it's giving a 200. Okay, and we can see this, the data now coming, the orders, org and customers. Similarly, the other order ID 200, respective customers and sales org. So now similar way, let's implement this order item get entity set to get the data. But before I write the logic, let's put a breakpoint and now get back to the client. Here you can see that to get the data, let's say for example, order ID 200, to get the order item, respective order item, we have to use this order header set followed by the parameter of the order ID or the key field called order ID value as 200, followed by the navigation property called nav order item set. So let's try this out and see if our breakpoint now triggers or not. and based upon our input parameter will define how the method to be implemented. So let's execute, and indeed the breakpoint, we reach the breakpoint. Let's double click on this call stack so that I can see what actually the method takes as an input. Example, entity name as order item, set name, order item set, key tab. In the key tab, we have some property. So let's double click on the key tab, and voila, we can see that order ID corresponding value is actually being contained in this internal table called IT key tab. So we can use this internal table. We can read that property called name with the value order ID to get the order ID value that we're interested, and from there we can query on the child's table to get the respective item table or item record. Sorry. So let's do this now. So let's declare a variable called L order ID, and that we need to read from I think the key table is called IT key tab, and we'll put the name property as order ID, and the value that we want to take called value. All right, let's put optional and 10 so that if there is no data in the key tab, then read query will not end up with any runtime error, right? It's above 7.4 coding pattern. I'll try to use the above 7.45 coding pattern only in this demo so that you will also get a flavor in case it is very new to you, in case I'm saying. So let's check like if this order ID is not initial. So let's make a query on gchild. The same way the ET entity sets, but this time we have to put a where clause. Order ID is equal to this L order ID. So let's do a syntax check. Anything wrong? Nothing wrong. So let's activate now. And now we'll be testing this one from our gateway client. So let's put a breakpoint first and run from our client the same query. So let's execute. Yes, order ID. Let me write you for the order ID. I think I have made a mistake because the value is order ID. Okay, I should change the code a little bit. Only this one is should be I should be small. I made it capital. So let's reactivate once. Try once more. And if I put F6, order ID init, I receive 200 now, and I can make a query on size versus 0. So if I execute it, voila, now I see the corresponding items, which is Posner 10 and Posner 20, we have received. So now it is like from the order header, we are getting this order item, but it is only doing for this individual item, right? 200 only. So if I want to fetch all the orders and all the respective items, then what to be done? So should I remove this properties now? Let's see what happens if I do this way. Does it really work? No, it's saying a bad request. So how to get all the orders and all the items at one shot? So for that, we'll be using one query parameter called $expand. So let's remove this forward slash, put a query sign, and then type $expand equal to this navigation property. So let's run. That means I am not giving any specific order ID. So I'm interested to fetch all the orders and respective all the order items. So let's see how it works. Click on execute. Now it doesn't complain. and it comes over here. So let's put a 5. Let's see. Voila, the order ID is now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the one of the order ID. Again execute. Again it comes to the same method. And now we can try. Now the next order ID 200 appears. And it's sent 200 OK. And now you can see that for the first order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is the item, and this is the another item called 20 as a partner. Similar way, we have this 200 orders, and the respective 200 orders, we have the corresponding properties, as we can see very well. The respective 200 order header details is here. So one interesting thing possibly you guys have noticed, that as many as the number of orders get increased, this particular method call will also equally increase to pick all the relevant order items, correct? So if I have 100 count as the order headers, this method will be called 100 times. And obviously this kind of a design is performance intensive, isn't it? So do I have any kind of a tricks to improve this kind of a design? Is it possible that I want to get all the orders and respective items in one shot rather than this iterative way? So let's learn how to improve this design a bit. So for that, we need to implement this method called get expanded entity set. So let's do that. Now let's remove all the commented codes. Let's activate this code. The method is activated. Let's put a breakpoint now. We'll implement a little later. So let's see what happens if I now test this from the gateway client. So before that, let's do one more thing. Okay, I believe I have my previous breakpoint already set. Click on this filter so that I only see my implemented methods. So let's double click. Yes, I have the breakpoint set over here. I also have put a breakpoint on the get expanded entity set as here. So let's run this from the gateway client and see what happens. You see it locked over in the get expanded entity set, but this didn't trigger the order item get entity set as of now. So click on execute. You see it never reached that order item get entity set, but it's only triggered the get expanded entity set, right? Just implementing that get expanded entity set, it's actually discarding that other implementation. That's good. So let's see how to implement this get expanded entity set now. I will not implement this method at the first time as correct way. Intention is I will make little mistakes, certain relevant and important mistakes, so that because it will happen by the beginners will definitely make those kind of mistakes. So we'll test it and figure out the problems, and I'll fix it also to understand how this actually works. Okay, that will be interesting, I believe. So let's do that. So what will be the first intention? Intention is to collect both order headers I would say, and respective order items, correct, in some internal table, because that eventually I want to pass it to the output as a response. So things like it, I need kind of a deep structure where the order and the respective items will stay. So let's type the certain internal types first. Begin of, let's say TY order and item, both it will contain. End of TY order item. Okay, so this is our types. So this is a kind of a structure that I've created. So this will contain all the order headers, and this particular property, which is the div structure, is kind of an internal table of the item, order item, which will contain all the order items. So let's create a table now, right? I think so far so good. Now the next step would be for which entity set this method or this logic we are interested. So currently our OData project contains only order header and order item entity, right? But we are interested to do only during order header. That entity set when it reaches, because this is the generic method, not any entity specific method. So for all the entity sets, this method would get triggered. So you have to limit down or restrict for which entity sets our logic should execute. So put a case statement, and we can put this entity set name, and I think our order entity name would be order header set. Correct. I don't need this another when clause. So our logic should be over here. So when order header set comes, then only we are interested to get or make a query on. So first we have to read all the order headers. Right. So I'm basically fetching all my parents or order details rather. Yeah, we could use join, we could use a lot of other things, but I'm making it much simpler so that you can relate to, and it makes easy to understand also. I hope it's pretty clear to you. Hope there is no syntax issue as well. Fantastic. So we have fetched this order, all the orders and the respective items now. So the next step would be to loop through these orders and the items, and we need to fill this particular internal table. That's all, right? So let's do that. So now let's do one thing. Let's append one initial record to this table called LT order item. And let's say reference into, this time I'll be using a reference. Let's say we could use the fill symbol, but let's do reference also. Hello, that's order item. So that is our reference object. So it's actually holding the initial line of this table. So now we have to just fill it up. So for that hello order reference, let's dereference it, and that is equal to corresponding I'll be using, so that I can fill this ls parent, right? So whatever the data I have received from the parent, let's put everything to this whichever matches. And the next challenge would be now to fill respective this particular property called order items. Let's put it order items. So this order items we need to fill, right? I'm making a mistake, but I'll tell you later what. Okay. So for that, we'll be using hello order, this reference object, followed by this property called order items. So this is the table, basically internal table or of the div structure, and that I want to fill with all the item details. So that means we need to loop through the items, otherwise we'll not get the item values. So let's put one more loop. We can put fill symbol here also. So this is our item table, And now I'll be just using a where clause. Ideally, this where statement is not recommended, but because it's a very small amount of data and just for demo, so for kind of a easy thing, I'm just doing it. Otherwise, for an actual proactive application, you have to use certain parallel cursor, those kind of things you have to consider. But I'm not doing it all those fancy things in this simple demo. And this one, we have to use this ls parent. Sorry, not ls child, but ls parent. And here this order ID you have to map. So for each order, I'll be just looping through all the items, and then I'll fill this item table inside that loop. Correct? So let's put value, and as it is a loop process, so let's put a base at the same order items again, so that it doesn't override in an iteration process. And then one more record parameters, properties, rather it should contain all the records now. So what records I want here? So here I have to fill corresponding again, and this actually the value that I have received from the child, correct? So all the items, I'm now supposed to fill it up in this order item table. And that way, this particular table called LT order item should have all the orders and the respective order items. Hopefully, no problem. Hopefully, I'm not sure if I'm making any mistakes. I don't know. Okay, I think syntactically correct. Let's activate it. Now let's put a breakpoint and see actually what happens, what exactly the data comes, and then it's not yet completed. So let's test it. Run it again. And you see the LT order item is supposed to be our data. So let's open it. The first order respective items I have populated. Fantastic. This is the second order, and the corresponding items I have populated. That's also great. Fine. So obviously no output I have given as a response, so empty response. That's perfectly fine. So let's go back to our method and re-implement. Continue our implementation. So now we'll be do copy data to ref. So here we'll put this table, which is we just populated LT order item, and this will be our reference data called ER entity set. So this is what we have to pass it here. Should be fine, I guess. Activate it. I'm not setting any breakpoint now, but I'll be directly testing because I know the data is actually populating and I'm just passing the reference. So if everything works fine, I'm supposed to see the data, but I have made a mistake, I told. Then we'll fix it, what the problem I have done. So let's execute now. And it's giving 200 okay. But what happened? I'm getting only the order item, sorry, order headers. Here also 200. Here also another order, but where are my items? My items gone, right? So that because we have partially implemented, there is still something to do. First thing is to navigate to this property child item, we have to do this et expanded text clause to fill what navigation property that we are moving to, so that this table is supposed to update that value. So we should not do a hard coding. Instead, we should check what actually comes from this IO expand input property. So let's put IO expand, and we'll find a property called get children. I think get children. Okay. So this will return certain internal tables, and that data we need to update to the CT expanded text clause. So let's take this data first, LT children, and let's see what it contains. Okay, at the first place. So let's activate it, and let's see what this particular children brings to my local internal table called LT children. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint now. Read on this from the client, and LT children is empty. Let's F6 and something populated. Let's see what happened. You see, it takes this nav order in item set. So this is what coming as an expand entity set, right? Expand, or rather navigation property. So this one we need to update to this ET expanded take clause. So that means we need to read this table for the property take nav prop name, and whatever the value we get, that we should populate. So take nav prop name is the property that we have to use. So let's do that. So it's just taking the LT children or the property take nav property and passing it back to the ET expanded take clause. So let's activate the changes. So now let's test our changes. So go back to the client. It's working, but it's still not taking the items. What happened? It only shows the order details, header details, not item details. And that because the navigation property that we have mentioned over here, order items, is not the actual navigation property. The actual navigation property is called nav order item set. So copy this and replace these order items with this one. That's all. So now if I now activate this one, okay, obviously certain adjustments you have to make. Let's do order items. Wherever we put that, we have to change it with this property. I think this one we have to replace with this new property that we have just added, I guess. Is that all done? This one also, this internal table also to be replaced with this one. Is it all good? Yeah, all good. Let's put a pretty printer and let's activate. So now what we have just made the changes, we actually telling this property which will take the item details should match this navigation property name. That's only the change we have done. So let's test it and see what happens. Again 200, okay. But now I see the items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corresponding item. Again this second item, and also the corresponding the header details, respective header details. This is what we wanted, isn't it? Again for this order item 200, which falls under 20, and now the excellent. So this is what we want actually, to get all the data and get all the items in one shot. So this will actually improve the performance. But to check the performance, there is one more thing we can do, and that is called, now you can very well use the JSON parameter as a query parameter to ease out this response. It will be easy for you to check the data. Go to add URI option and double click on this called format equal to JSON, which will be adding as additional this property. Now click on execute, and now nicely the JSON is coming, and that will be very easy for you to understand what's going on. Now one more thing, like I said, like this is a more better performance than the previous one where we just used an expand nav property, but each time it was triggering that order item get entity set method. A better approach is get expanded entity set, but how to check whether it's really adding some benefits or not? For that, you can use one more additional property called ampersand, and then you can add called SAP statistics is equal to true. If I execute that, then you'll see everything same, but now you will get something, a new property in the header request called SAP statistics, and you can see the corresponding gateway total those values. I think it is, you have to just run a little more so that you get a very genuine data. So you see this gateway total is actually the milliseconds, 23 milliseconds overall, Each time you run, it may change a little bit, but it is actually a summation of these three values called gateway framework time that it takes. This is the gateway RFC time that it takes, and this one is the coding that we have written in the DPC-exe. So if we just sum up these three values, this one, and this one, this one application, then you will get the total 21. So this is the total amount that it took to complete this execution. And similar way, if you want to test a huge number of sales orders with the previous approach where we didn't implement the get expanded entity set method, and then also you can similarly you can check this SAP statistics to see how much performance deficiency that you'll notice, right, with the previous approach. So definitely this is a good way to check the performance. Thanks for watching. Subscribe my channel and don't forget to hit the bell icon, as it will intimate you the next time I upload a new content to you. See you next. Goodbye till then.